Hello, this is Dr. Langbine, and tonight we'll be talking about decision analysis. In this example, we're going to look at how different people might make different decisions. When I used to teach this class in a classroom many years ago, I would ask students, so if you're going to make an investment, and it's the same amount of money that you're going to invest, would you purchase an apartment building, warehouse, or retail building? And all the time, students would shout out an answer. And it was sort of a trick question, because how could you possibly answer that question without having some data behind you to make that decision? And ultimately, what you find out is not every investor is going to make the same decision. Does that mean one investor is right versus wrong? Every scenario is different. So what we're going to be talking about is many different ways that you can look at things. So, for example, what I call the max investor. This is the most optimistic person in the world. Of everything good that could happen, they are going to choose the best solution, the best of the best. Now, I do this a little bit different than your current textbook does, but I find this way to be a little bit more simpler for students to follow. So you're welcome to do it the way that your textbook does, or you're welcome to create a chart the way that I do. So if you take a look at this, what this is saying is if you have an apartment building and the conditions are favorable market conditions, you're going to earn $500,000. However, if you have an apartment building and it's unfavorable market conditions, you're only going to earn $200,000. If you buy a warehouse and it's favorable market conditions, you're going to earn $375,000. If you buy a warehouse and it's unfavorable market conditions, you're going to lose $25,000. If you purchase a retail building in its favorable market conditions, you're going to earn $550,000. If you purchase a retail building in its unfavorable market conditions, you're only going to earn $100,000. So in our first example, our very optimistic person, other books refer to this as the max, this is going to be the best of the best. So to me, what I always did was I create this column and I call it my maximum column. So in each row, what is my maximum? What's my bigger number? So 500 or 200. So 500 would be my bigger number. In this row, 375 or negative 25. Of course, it's 375,000. 550 or 100,000. 550,000. So my max investor is going to take the maximum of the maximums. So they are going to select the biggest number in this maximum column. So my max investor is going to select the retail building and expect $550,000. Now, maybe you aren't quite as optimistic as everything that could possibly go right is going to. So maybe your strategy is, of all the bad things that could happen, I'm going to take the best of the bad things. So in this case, I would create what I'd call the minimum column. And in the minimum column, I'm simply going to do the same thing, except for I'm going to take the smaller of the two numbers. So 500,000 or 200,000, it would be 200. 375 or negative 25, it would be negative 25. And 550 or 100, and it would be 100. Now, the maxi-min investor is going to take the biggest number of this minimum column. So in this case, the maxi-min investor would say, I would select the apartment building for $200,000. Okay, so now let's assume that maybe someone's going to say, okay, there's a 50% chance that the market condition might be favorable. There's a 50% chance that it's unfavorable. So somebody wants you to create a loss table, and they want you to select a decision that would minimize the expected loss, and they want you to figure out what is the minimum EOL. So to do this, again, I use the column method. So I look in the favorable column and I say, what's my biggest number in this column? My biggest number in this column is 550,000. So I'm going to subtract everything from 550,000. So 550,000 minus 500,000 gives me 50,000. So my loss table That's what I'm going to put down here, 50,000. I'm going to take 550,000 minus my 375, which is going to give me 175. So that's what's going to go down in my loss table. And I'm going to, of course, take my 550 minus 550, and that's going to give me 0. I'm going to do the same thing for my unfavorable conditions. So my largest number in unfavorable conditions would be 200,000. So I'm going to say 200,000 minus 200,000 is going to give me 0. 200,000 minus a negative 25,000 is going to give me 225,000. And 200,000 minus 100,000 is going to give me 100,000. So notice in my loss table, each column has a 0. That would be correct because we're taking the largest number in each column and subtracting it from itself. So we're always going to end up with a problem that is 0. So in this case, what we're going to do, now that we have our numbers, we're going to say, okay, there's a 50% chance that the market is going to be favorable. So we're going to take 50% of 50,000 plus 50% of our 0. And that's going to give us 25,000. Now we're going to take 50% of 175,000 plus 50% of 225,000. And that's going to give us 200,000. And then we're going to take 50% of 0 plus 50% of 100,000. And that is going to give us 50,000. So in our loss table, we're going to have 25,000, 200,000, or 50,000. We're going to select the least number, the smallest number out of our loss table. So in this example, we would select apartment building, and it would be $25,000. Okay, in our final problem, this is also known as Hurwitz Criterion. This would be where someone's going to give us the chance. So someone's going to say there's an 80% chance that the market's going to be favorable, which means there's a 20% chance that it's not going to be favorable. Keep in mind, everything always has to add up to 100. So if it's 0.8, it would be 0.2. If it's 0.7, 0.3, 0.6, 0.4. You get the idea. Or it could be 0.4, 0.6, vice versa. It all depends upon where we're going to arrive from our data. So in this case, we're going to use 0.8 and 0.20. So we're going to take everything in our first column and we're going to multiply it times 0.8. And then we're going to add that to everything in our second column, which we're going to multiply times 0.2. So we have 500,000 times 0.8 gives us 400,000 plus 200,000 times 0.2, which gives us 40,000, which gives us 440,000. We take our 375,000 times 0.8 gives us 300,000 plus our negative 25,000 times 0.2 gives us negative 5,000, gives us 295,000. And finally, we take our 550,000 times 0.8, which gives us 440,000, plus our 100,000 times 0.2, which gives us 20,000, which gives us 460,000. In this case, we are going to select the biggest number out of our answers. So the answer for our Hurwitz Criterion would be $460,000. We would select the retail building.